Welcome to VNT. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The Supreme Court is once again at the center of America's gun debate, stepping into a controversy that has divided the nation for decades. The justices have agreed to hear a pivotal case that could fundamentally reshape the rules of gun ownership and public carry across the country. At the heart of the case is a 2023 Hawaii law, which raises a crucial question. Where exactly can a licensed individual legally carry a gun in public spaces? The answer to this question will have sweeping consequences for every American, whether they own a gun or not, touching on issues of personal safety, community norms, and constitutional rights. This isn't just a matter of legal theory, it's about the parks where children play, the restaurants where families gather, and the shops where we all go about our daily lives. The Supreme Court will soon decide whether states have the authority to create broad gun-free zones in these everyday places, or if the constitutional right to carry a firearm extends into nearly every corner of public life, regardless of local concerns or traditions. This case follows the landmark 2022 Bruin decision, which affirmed an individual's right to carry a handgun outside the home for self-defense, but left states scrambling to define what counts as sensitive places, where guns could still be restricted, leading to a patchwork of laws and uncertainty. Conflicting court rulings and rapidly changing state laws have created widespread confusion for citizens, law enforcement, and lawmakers alike. And now, the Supreme Court must step in to settle the issue once and for all, providing clarity for the entire nation. The outcome of this case will shape not just the laws on the books, but the daily reality of public and private life in America, influencing how safe people feel in their communities. As arguments approach, the nation waits anxiously for a decision that could redefine our sense of safety, freedom, and what it means to live together in a society shaped by both rights and responsibilities. Hawaii's 2023 law is among the strictest in the country, banning guns in government buildings, schools, parks, beaches, and anywhere alcohol is served. The law was passed in response to a Supreme Court decision that expanded gun rights nationwide, but Hawaii's lawmakers moved quickly to set their own boundaries. Supporters say these restrictions are necessary to keep communities safe and prevent gun violence in public spaces that families and children frequent every day. The most controversial part, Hawaii's law bans guns in any private business open to the public, unless the owner posts a sign or gives explicit permission. This means that, by default, carrying a firearm into most stores, restaurants, or offices is illegal, unless you see a sign that says otherwise. For many business owners, this puts them in the position of having to make a public statement about their stance on guns. This flips the default from allowed to prohibited, making it much harder for gun owners to carry in daily life. Everyday activities like shopping, dining out, or visiting a park now require extra caution and planning for those with concealed carry permits. Many residents feel this change has upended their sense of personal security and freedom. 3 Maui residents and the Hawaii Firearms Coalition sued, arguing the law makes self-defense rights meaningless by turning most public spaces into gun-free zones. They claim the law goes too far, leaving law-abiding citizens unable to protect themselves in almost any public setting, and that it violates the spirit of the Second Amendment. A federal judge initially blocked the law, agreeing it might infringe on constitutional rights. But the Ninth Circuit reversed that decision, allowing enforcement to continue while the legal battle plays out. This back and forth has left many residents uncertain about what's actually allowed. This directly conflicted with other federal courts, especially in New York, where similar laws were struck down. The result is a legal split, with different rules depending on where you live, and growing confusion for gun owners and law enforcement alike. The Supreme Court's intervention is now necessary to set a single national standard. Only the highest court can resolve these conflicting rulings and clarify how far states can go in regulating guns in public. The stakes are high, whether states can broadly restrict public carry, or if the Second Amendment overrides such bans. The outcome could reshape gun laws not just in Hawaii, but across the entire country, affecting millions of Americans. The outcome will ripple far beyond Hawaii, setting a precedent that could influence how every state balances public safety with constitutional rights for years to come. Hawaii defends its law as a balance between public safety and property rights, arguing the Second Amendment isn't absolute. The state says it's protecting citizens by restricting guns in crowded or sensitive places, and empowering business owners to decide if guns are allowed. They cite historical laws requiring consent before bringing weapons onto private property. Gun rights advocates counter that Hawaii's law guts the Bruin decision, making the right to carry nearly impossible to exercise. They argue American tradition allowed carrying unless a property owner posted a ban, not the other way around. The Supreme Court must decide which historical narrative holds, and how it applies to today's world of malls and city streets. The answer will set the boundaries for gun rights in public life. This case is the latest in a series of Supreme Court decisions that have dramatically redefined the meaning and reach of the Second Amendment in American life. Over the past 2 decades, the court has taken up several landmark cases that have shifted the legal landscape around gun rights and regulations. The 2022 Bruin ruling was a turning point. It affirmed a right to carry firearms outside the home for self-defense, and introduced a new history and tradition test for evaluating gun laws, requiring that any restriction must be rooted in the nation's historical practices. Before Bruin, courts generally gave states broad leeway to regulate public carry, allowing for a patchwork of laws across the country. But that changed overnight, as the decision forced states to justify their laws based on historical analogs. The court's recent decisions have been mixed, sometimes upholding certain gun restrictions, while striking down others, demonstrating a willingness to weigh public safety, but only if there's clear historical precedent to support it. This has left lower courts and lawmakers scrambling to interpret what counts as a valid historical comparison. The Hawaii case now tests the boundaries of how far states can go in restricting guns in both public and private spaces, especially in places where people gather or live. The justices must apply the history and tradition test to a practical, everyday question. Where does the Second Amendment actually apply in daily life? Their decision will affect not just legal theory, but the lived experience of millions of Americans. Their answer will clarify the rules for every state, setting a national standard that could either expand or limit the places where guns are allowed. The stakes are high, whether modern gun laws can stand if they lack deep historical roots, or if states will be forced to rewrite their regulations to fit the court's new framework. The outcome will shape gun policy and the balance between rights and regulation for years, if not generations, to come. The Supreme Court's decision will immediately affect where Americans see guns in daily life. If Hawaii's law is upheld, states could create broad gun-free zones. Parks, restaurants, and shops could remain mostly weapon-free. If struck down, guns could become a common sight in public and commercial spaces. Business owners would either retain the right to exclude guns by default, or be forced to post signs to keep them out. The case is about 2 visions of freedom: the right to carry for self-defense, versus the right to public spaces without firearms. The ruling will set the balance between individual rights and collective safety. However the court decides, the social contract around guns in America will change. The impact will be felt in every community. The Supreme Court took this case to resolve a national split. Different courts have issued conflicting rulings on similar laws. The decision will set a single standard for all states, ending the current patchwork of rules. If Hawaii's law falls, similar laws in New York, California, and elsewhere will likely be struck down, forcing states to rethink gun regulation. If upheld, it gives states a clear path to create broad gun-free zones and presumptive bans on private property. The ruling will clarify how courts should apply the history and tradition test from Bruin, shaping all future Second Amendment cases. The justices' analysis will determine what counts as a valid historical analog for modern gun laws. The outcome will influence everything from gun-free zones to age restrictions and beyond. This case will define the next era of American gun policy. As the Supreme Court hears arguments, all eyes are on the justices whose decision will shape American gun laws for a generation. Watch for clues in their questions, especially from the swing votes, about how they interpret history and the Second Amendment. The majority opinion will need to grapple with whether Hawaii's approach is rooted in American tradition or a modern overreach. The ruling will trigger immediate responses. States may rush to change laws, Advocacy groups will shift strategies, and new legal battles will begin. Whether the decision is narrow or sweeping, it will set the terms for future gun rights debates. By June 2026, the court will draw a new line in the sand, defining the rights and realities for millions of Americans. The debate won't end, but the rules of engagement will be forever changed.